it was very easy to overrun, to hit the capital and destroy over 4,000 people within a year. So what we've been doing is to see how do you build health systems after Ebola. Rebuilding Ebola was about rebuilding health services, rebuilding education services. For education, basic Ebola control message, say you have to wash your hands, you have to do this. For many people that are illiterate, it was difficult for them to literally understand that overnight. So you actually need to have long-term development investments in education, at the same time as healthcare. How many drugs are going to hospitals from the capital, Freetown, are going to hospitals in the rural areas? We saw that those accountability structures are non-existent. So post-Ebola, we devised a tool that we call the Service Delivery Index. The Service Delivery Index literally looks at the delivery of basic services in MP constituencies and local councils. So for the first time, we collected government-owned data on healthcare, how many nurses are being recruited in this small clinic, which clinics have drugs. Our approach is always social accountability. The idea is not to embarrass them. The idea is to say, this is the challenge. And people will love you more as a member of parliament if you work with them to address this. So we did this ranking. So in some ways, some of the questions we'll be asking is, who determines the health priorities of Sierra Leone? Is it donors? Is it government? Is it the people? And how do we bring citizens and stronger presence of government into that conversation? The last time we checked, less than 8% of drugs are being procured by the government. So most of drug procurement is done internationally. So we ask ourselves, how do we ensure that the best set of drugs are being procured? Who determines which drugs? Which analysis have we done to ensure that those drugs are actually used? I know WHO does quite a lot of those analyses. There are certain things we are not really too competent to comment on.
Do you think Sierra Leone is a good case study of a good example of successful foreign intervention? What can it teach us about how to support the recovery process after conflict?
Yeah. Sierra Leone is an interesting case of multilateralism. There are a number of arguments. There is one country where multilateralism has really worked effectively. But beyond the international success, there was quite a lot that we can give to the leadership at the time and the people at the time. Sierra Leone had a leadership that can say to the rebels, and you hardly see this in other African countries, say, you know what, you want power, get off the bush, come let's share. So that made us to go to Lome in 1999 and develop an instrument that outlined the disarming and demobilization of some 75,000 fighters. So after that, the country has been really resilient. The people were easy to say, you know what, I don't know whether you've watched Cry Freetown, where limbs were being chopped off. See, you've done that to us, let us forget about that and move on. Even when we walk these days, we have hindsight, we keep in hindsight what happened during the war and how do we ensure it's not being repeated. So the appetite for peace is growing, is ever there, but it's growing. In fact, there is an argument out there that even at the time of war, Sierra Leone, by the level of tolerance the people have, could be much more peaceful than some other countries that have not tasted war. Because it is easy for me to for the past 5, 6, 7 years, our performance on the peace index has been very high. I think we're quite about the second highest in West Africa. So peace is there because the culture of the people is likely really peaceful. There is nothing really to worry about. So we believe that if we fix the problem of accountability, as you rightly described from the start of the conversation, what the TRC painted, that neglect, disregard for dissent and neglect of basic services made somebody to say, I'm going to monopolize the grievance, I'm going to fight. But the moment that ended, I think we can have a forward-looking country. Yes, it's possible.
Well, thank you so much for your time, for visiting us here at Harris.
Yeah, it's my pleasure meeting you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Root of Conflict, featuring Andrew Lavali, Founding Executive Director of the Institute for Governance Reform. Special thanks to Ning Wong for editing, and to the UC3P production team and the Pearson Institute for their support.
For more information about the Pearson Institute's events and research, visit thepearsoninstitute.org or follow them on Twitter.